I've been working on a few shows here lately, but one of the things that I've really been trying to work on here now, and in the coming weeks, you will see this as far as the interview stage is concerned. One of the things that I want to do is I'm just going to be putting out a show. It's going to be between 10 to 15 minutes long. And essentially, what it's going to be is it's going to be a bio of whichever artist I have on, where I'm just going to talk about briefly about what got them into the music business, what their inspiration was for the material that they have out, and then we're going to probably play about 3 or 4 songs of theirs. And it's just going to be something that what I'm going to try to do once I get the ball rolling with this is try to have a couple of them a month where we just have different artists come through and I just get to talk to them. Because what I used to do prior to my kids being born, what I would do is I would actually go to different bars and that, because there used to be a lot of open mics and whatnot that used to go on in the city. And what I would do is I would talk to these bands, and even though my show was an R&B, hip hop show, whatever you want to call it, I didn't care what the genre of music was that the artists were. My whole thing was, you know what? If you go to a radio station and you want to get put on there, you got to pay to get on there. And it's only like a short spot. And if you don't have a whole lot of money, you may not be able to get that spot. And what I'm offering is it's kind of a dual purpose, because for me, it gets me the exposure. I like talking to people anyway, so it fulfills my end from that part. But on the other hand, for the artists, they're getting free publicity, because what ends up happening is when I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on Mixcloud. I'm going to put it on our page as well. And then what happens is if they want to download it and put it on a site that they have that promotes it, then it's free publicity. And like I've told some of these artists in the past, and like what I've told a couple of people that I'm in the process of talking to right now, is that they're in the United States. We're here in Canada. So chances are you may not have had people over here hearing your music anyway. So if I put it out there, even if only say 50 people ended up listening to it, that's 50 people who wouldn't have heard it otherwise. And depending on if they like it or not, that could, you know what I mean? It could start something up big for it. You know what I mean? And it's free advertisement. So everybody wins there. And it's also entertaining for you, because I don't know about other people, but myself, I've always been a fan of history. I love biopics, things of that nature. And when you hear how someone got to where they are, I've always found that interesting. You know what I mean? And especially if all of a sudden, who knows what the future is going to hold. Somebody right now I could interview today, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to be the one that puts them over the top, but they could interview me. I could interview them. And then it could be like 2 or 3 years down the road, it could end up being that they get that lucky break and all of a sudden they're big. And it's like, oh, you know what? I remember 2 years ago, I interviewed these guys before they were famous. You know what I mean? And it's kind of cool. So it's just
Yeah,
one of
that
those
happens
things.
a lot. Oh, somebody's got a question for us.
We got something here.
Yeah.
Hey Dell, I don't really know too much about you. Obviously, I know Dean very well. But quick question. Obviously, you're very skilled in your industry just by listening to you for the last bit and listening to all the existing podcasts that you've done with Dean. Do you have any interest in detailing? It's cool if you don't. I was just wondering if you did, because it's something that might be cool to hear it from, I would say, like a consumer or like a DIY or someone that isn't too like in depth or like focused on the industry. I was just wondering.
Well, I would have to say that everything that I already don't know is something that interests me. And I mean, that to me, that's one of the big reasons why I love history, because it gives you an opportunity to learn stuff that you may not have known before. So for me, it's like, you know what? In a lot of jobs that I've worked, detail was a key. You know, whether it was when I was in Tool and Die, or even in terms of what I do in music, I mean, there's a certain level of detail that has to be there. So for me personally, it would be something interesting, because, you know what, having a clean car, having a nice looking vehicle, you know, it's one thing to bring it to a shop and have it done. But it's another thing that if you know how to do it yourself, hey, that's a good thing. And it's always good to be able to have a talent where you can turn around, and if things go like they're going now, and you know what, the economy changes or whatever, it gives you an opportunity to put yourself in business in a different way. You know what I mean? So for me personally, having a skill that allows me to do something that I don't already know how to do as it is, but allows me to possibly put money in my pocket as well as learning a new thing is absolutely something that interests me. So, when I listen to a lot of the stuff that Dean talks about, that's me learning something. Just as, you know what, maybe he might pick up a tip or two from hearing me talk. Who knows? You know what I mean? So it's definitely.
Well, we've in a couple of our podcasts, you and I actually did a back and forth, and I showed you some of the equipment that I use. And even
Yeah.
off air, like when you came in the shop, I took you on a tour. We should have actually videotaped it at the time, but it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. But yeah, you know what? Maybe in the future, like, once we get past this little stumbling block that we're in right now, you and I could detail a car together, and I could actually show you hands on.
Well, I think that would actually be a good thing too, because as he mentioned, if you're someone who like, it's easy enough for like someone like him or someone like yourself who's in the industry already. But you get a different perspective from someone who they see you do it, but they really don't have any idea because they're not in the industry. So you get kind of a different
Yeah.
perspective, and showing that person for the first time so they get to see it, and in real time, how all these processes take place. I think that's a good thing, because you know what, from the viewer's standpoint, I think that they're going to get a different perspective as opposed to just having two professionals just sit there and talk about it. If all of a sudden,
Yeah.
just say you have me on there and you're showing me, I don't necessarily know any more about it than the viewer does. So it actually makes it even more personal for them, because it's like, okay, well, we got this guy who's on there. But you know what? He's a DJ. He doesn't know anything about detailing, but
Yeah.
he's learning too. So
Yeah.
in a way, they're kind of learning through me. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. And I think it's definitely
Well,
something, and because I know we had talked about that
I
before, and I
think it
think
would be
that's
good for
definitely.
both of us. The thing is, I've been doing this so long that it's hard for me to, back up the hands of time and remember what it was like when I first started, because a lot of times a good detailer is not necessarily a good teacher, because the problem is we've been doing it for so long, we just assume that everybody else knows how to do it, and we forget the steps that it took to get us there.